Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hey, April.
How are you?
Good afternoon.
Doing good.
Good.
Cindy's here.
Looks like right now you are the only TEA member on.
Let's see.
We also have Laura
Laura.
Crosswhite sitting in for Amber Schultz.
Okay, okay.
So we have Laura and Cindy. Good. Okay.
And I see Curtis Needon just popped on.
Oh, good.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How we doing?
Good.
I believe we're just waiting on Dr. Anderson.
Okay.
Was Natalie not going to be able to be on?
No, she's traveling.
Okay.
Well, should we give her another minute or two?
Yeah, I think so. It's just now turning 2:01, so.
How's everybody doing this afternoon? Not getting any sunburns, I don't think.
Well, not here in Wichita. It's kind of
No, not
cloudy.
Hmm. Well, did Tiffany indicate that she'd be on? I mean, she RSVP'd? Okay.
She did.
Well, I don't want to spend anybody's time. Do you think we ought to go ahead and get started and she'll catch up? She's pretty quick. Well, let's call this thing to order. Good afternoon to all of you. Why don't we just charge right ahead? Thanks for participating, and you've had a chance to look at the minutes in the packet, so I'd entertain a motion to approve those, if you please.
So moved.
Thank you, Cindy. Is there a second? Not sure. Who else is on here that?
Laura would be the only one right now that's on that could second.
Okay,
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you,
good
Laura.
call. Thank you. All right, I kind of prefer to do this on Zoom the other way around. Does anybody oppose the motion to approve the minutes? It is therefore unanimously approved. I hope you're okay with that. It's better than having everybody chirp in with eyes. Okay, let's move on to the next thing and hear about the workforce, our authority goals and our development consultants. So Rita, maybe you could take it
Okay.
away.
Thank you. Thank you. I wished more of the members were on here because this is going to be kind of a thinking session. I have worked through, this is the same kind of exercise I've worked through with all three of the committees. I did it with budget and finance this morning. I'm going to do it again with program and curriculum after this one. But basically, it's to kind of get everybody's thoughts together on tasks, activities, working toward the goals of the Technical Education Authority and trying to get things lined up so that in our May meeting, I can have this whole list and we can say, you know, this committee recommends these and so on and so forth. So we can just move right on through them. And so this particular, in doing that, in preparing for that, I went back through and looked through some of our historical records and found that at one point we had a mission and vision statement for the Technical Education Authority. And the latest one that was established by the members, the mission was to drive the advancement of a robust technical education system to meet the needs of Kansas business and industry. And the vision then focused on being a premier technical education system to develop a highly prepared Kansas workforce. That it was to meet the needs of business and industry and to provide a highly prepared Kansas workforce through this technical education system. And to this end, then the members began establishing goals to focus on each year. And they had three major categories for their goals. And one of those was to align the technical education offerings within the system itself and ensuring that it was aligned with the needs of business and industry. So there was this whole alignment, programs within the system, and be sure that all programs were aligned with business and industry needs. The second was enhancing. They were wanting to enhance system participation, include more, try to reach out to other constituencies, other bodies, so that we had more people in that pipeline taking technical education coursework and developing those skills. So system participation, also looking at policy and funding. And at that time, the major emphasis was to establish our institutional or our instructional cost model, which we have kind of worked on, and it's being in place now. And the third major area was evaluating and measuring the system effectiveness. Are we doing what we thought we were doing? Are we producing what we need to be producing, and so on and so forth? So as a result, then the goals that you came up with last year are listed there. There were 10 of them. And those goals were then broken down amongst the three committees. And when I looked at the one for advocacy and marketing, it was to improve and enhance communication with high schools, high school counselors, school districts, students, parents, businesses, and the legislature by expanding available information, continued work on needs assessments, and improving the website navigation. So not being a part of when this was put together, I'm kind of at a loss at what specific past activities did people have in mind when they made this a goal. Because I know as a technical authority, the authority itself really is kind of limited in their direct communications with high schools, high school counselors, school districts, students, parents. I mean, historically, that's been primarily on the K-12 side, the secondary side. They have well-established communication venues, avenues with all the high schools, the counselors, the school districts, students, and parents that we as a technical education authority really don't have. And if there's something we can do and that was one reason why I was really hoping that Tiffany and or Natalie would be on this call to tell us what kinds of things they have and how can we partner with them to help meet this goal. Then there's business and the legislature. And if any of you have any ideas about that. So I'm basically kind of putting everything on the table. Do we want to stick with this kind of an idea? Do we feel we have a way, or do we need to develop a way to make any kind of influence or effect on the system? Or do we revamp the purpose for this particular committee? And that's kind of what I wanted you as members to kind of give some thought to.
Thanks for summing that up, Rita.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree that those seem to be the questions. I'm trying to remember. I feel like I was part of one or two discussions around this, but still pretty new at the time. And I'm not sure any of us had a very fleshed out idea of sort of, if this is the goal, what's the time and action plan underneath it?
Yeah.
I don't recall that
Okay.
that was really springing forth.
Well, I know historically, as far as business, the business piece, workforce development has worked with commerce and had usually had kind of a workshop. April, help me out here. A meeting where a joint conference that both supported, in addition to Eddie's the annual one in January, which is not going to occur again, I'm sure. But I think there was an additional one that tied education and business together, that because it was a joint conference with commerce. Is that still?
Yep, the Kansas Workforce Conference
Yes.
will take place in October. We try to do it in October of every year, and it's yes, us and the Department of Commerce. We try to get business and industry there, but it's hard to develop a conference that's relevant to everyone.
Okay. Okay.
So I guess one question I would have is, obviously the word advocacy is in there, obviously the word legislature is in there. So is there any ambiguity about our, this being the lobbying being under the umbrella of this committee, or is there some other way in which the work of our lobbyists is overseen or taken in?
Currently, the board has normally they have what do they call a liaison, a legislative liaison. This year they started out with one and then had to contract with an outside person to go in and do the lobbying and make that connection for the whole supposedly for the whole higher ed head.
Right.
But granted, the things that pop up in the legislature, a lot of it that is focused on the university. And whatever, if we choose to do, some lobbying, since we are a subset of the Board of Regents, would need to go through their processes, and we could maybe submit suggestions, or if we know of some things that are coming up, things that we would like for them to focus on, we certainly could add that to our list, is just kind of be mindful of what's going on. And if we feel there's nudges that need to be made, we could work with whomever the board has in that position to represent the whole regions.
So it seems to me that given our position in this ecosystem, we may well acknowledge that it would be good if there were better communications between parents and the tech schools, for example.
Mhm.
Whether that's a task that falls to us isn't so clear to me. It'd be a matter of figuring out what are the systemic needs in this zone that nobody else has sort of an inherent interest or ability to take up. So, for example, this could be a terrible example because I don't understand the subject matter well enough, but I've heard a number of bits of input from some of the tech schools and other people I work with in aviation pertinent to this issue of young people starting programs and getting just what they need and then running off to a lucrative job and their careers are launched and they're a success story, but the tech colleges don't get credit for it. So in some sense, because they didn't finish the program. Is that an issue that rings a bell? Does that have a label? I mean, am I right about that? Just to pick an issue.
Yeah, so what
Or-
you would be talking about is program completion. So
Okay, so it strikes me that it it seems to be the type of issue that might be fairly common to all the participants in the system, but no one of them would be the one in place to raise it. So that strikes me as a thing that like we'd be the ones to say, insofar as we identify that as a problem with the system, it sounds like one, but like I say, I'm not versed enough to adjudicate that. But let's say it is, then that sounds like something that we would take on and read it, put it through the rubric you just described. So the lobbying stuff sounds like, maybe I'm using the wrong word, that might make us uncomfortable as a authority, but the advocacy part
Yeah.
for on behalf of the system sounds like a good fit. As far as marketing, I'm a little stumped as to the role that's the system-wide role that fits us. So I don't know. What does anybody else think about how it falls to us to market what to whom?
Well, I know in the past we had done some social media marketing and we'd hired somebody to come up with some kind of a promotion and then tracked how many hits we had and so on and so forth. I think now that's being done through isn't Tim Peterson's has activity in that, and he has funding that's coming through Commerce that kind of assists with the whole system-wide marketing, providing awareness of the system coming through that particular force, because as this committee, we don't have any dedicated dollars. And I
Right.
know we do have some Perkins money that we have allocated for marketing within Perkins programs. And April, help me out here.
no, you're right. And from no, I wasn't here on the inception of this particular committee, but I was here shortly after. There was money in the budget where we created, I think, posters and some videos that went out.
Or
Since that
billboards.
time,
Yeah.
since that time, there hasn't been money allocated to the board office for
Marketing.
any marketing. And so with Perkins, like Rita said, we do set aside, and I want to say it's about $6,000. That's all that we can spend legally out of those funds to market, which obviously isn't very much. So that then complicates this conversation by saying, well, what can we do with marketing if you never have money? And what can you do with advocacy if it really does belong with the liaison at our office? That's kind of been our confusion as well, just being honest with everybody that it's, what do we do? Is it, and don't take this as being rude, but is it worth maintaining this particular committee? Should we change the focus of this committee to something else? Or should the members of this committee be split up among the other two committees, or open to any kind of ideas?
Well, yeah, I think we're in sync here, because it seems to me that I don't know that the cosmos is calling us to come out and market.
Yeah,
But we may have a role that has to do with seeing the entire system and saying, you know what, there's a gap in the line over here. Somehow or another, parents here just aren't picking up on what's available to their kiddos, and addressing that maybe by convening the people who would do the marketing or something like that. I'm kind of improvising here, but the point is, we'd be looking at the system for lapses in good communication, as opposed to somehow driving a marketing message ourselves. That seems more sensible, because all of the schools have their own marketing budgets, right?
absolutely, yes. Yeah.
So that sounds like it aligns better with who we are in the aquarium here. Well, how does that reduce to a task list? I'm not sure, but it probably has more to do with coming together to talk about either data or anecdotes or whatever we've picked up about where the message is getting through and where it's not, and then maybe sharing that strategically with the people who are in a better position to do something with the messaging.
Which may be fine. I mean, this group, this committee could be a place where, if there are issues like the program completion issues, the institutions could come and say, we're having problems in this area. Can you help us fix it? Or can you, and looking at the program completion piece, trying to identify how many of those are stepping out, and then going back and looking to see if they ever come back. Because sometimes they will initially take a job, and then as they want to progress in whatever organization they are, they may need to come back for additional training. Or maybe it's developing some, those that we know left for a job. What can we do? What advocacy can we share with those businesses, or influence, or communication to say, you've hired this person, we're still here, we're willing to uptrain them, upskill them whenever necessary. Is that something? I don't know. I mean, just as issues arise.
Right. Well, and similarly on the business component in there, I've come to understand, and this is second nature to all of you, but like, doesn't each of the tech schools have its own sort of local industry liaison committee or functionality?
They do have their own advisory boards with every program.
Okay, advisory boards. And so naturally, that's a set of synapses that has to be firing. And if we discern that it was failing somehow, it would fall to us to say, guys, there's a problem. This system isn't serving business. I'm not aware of any red flashing lights in terms of those synapses. But I wouldn't see that our group needs to be stepping in to fix something that either isn't broken, or,
Right.
a little tuning at the local level, but maybe yeah. So aside from acknowledging that it's important to keep business in the loop, I'm not sure what this committee would do about that. So,
I'm gonna put the only president who's on the call on the spot here, Seth Carter from Colby. Would you have any comments, thoughts, anything?
April, it's a lot different at Colby just because we have such a heavy emphasis in agriculture. We don't have any major forms of business industry. I worked at Flint Hills Technical College, And we did a tremendous amount with different industry partners going through and doing it. But as Miss Johnson said, they were all part of our advisory boards. I mean, we had internships. It was just so different. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know what it really would look like coming from that committee side of it. And maybe it's just because I'm ignorant or not very bright, but it's just, I've been at Colby now for almost a decade, and we have tried doing so many different business ventures. Part of the challenge you run into, especially at our scale, is we deal with farmers that farm 50,000 acres. They have million-plus-dollar combines. We don't have the bandwidth to accommodate that. So it's very different here. It's totally different than it was when I lived in Emporia.
Okay.
I know that doesn't really help, but
It
Well, first of
doesn't.
all, Seth, don't horn in on my ignorant, dumb turf. Okay, I had that get staked out already. You'll have to come up with something else because I feel largely ignorant of most of these topics. But what you just said makes a lot of sense to me, and it strikes me that if aside from just holding sacred that loop with business has to be in place, our group at most maybe should have a role that involves a macro view across the state to say, well, okay, you guys on the ground are serving your locals, but based on our conversations with commerce and other, stakeholders, I'm telling you, somebody better start standing up some programs about EV chargers or whatever, just pulling that out of the air. But I guess it maybe would fall to us to see it at a level that no one of the schools would necessarily see business and industry at. So
I don't agree. I think the technical colleges, that's their purview, and the community colleges from a technical perspective to go out and work with business and industry and figure out what they need. I mean, that's what they do. And then you have the programs committee who's going to review those programs coming through and approve them, and you're going to have business on those calls or having written letters saying I support these programs or I don't. So to me it's like, well, why should I'm not sure why we should be doing that piece of it if that's their kind of their purview.
Okay.
Now I do think that providing data and support and answering questions and all that's stuff we already do, right? And I don't know that we need another committee here for any questions that arise. I mean, we can take that through the normal business meetings, I would think, and then assign an action to staff to go get that data. I mean, when we went through this last time, and I mean, I was pretty new too when we did that, but I mean, that's the question I had when we were going through it. It was like, why actually do we have the committee? And I didn't know enough to really ask. And because I just feel like if it takes this much effort to come up with a goal that isn't covered elsewhere, maybe we're adding work where we don't need to.
Maybe so. Yeah.
But I don't want to disband if there's a valid reason. And then we did have a lot of discussion. I can't remember which website we were talking about, April, but about upgrading the website, making it easier to use to get the information on scholarships and just stuff like that.
Yeah. And that, I believe that was the Kansas Board of Regents website. I believe there's still conversations about having a website. I think technically there's conversations about having two websites, one for all of us who are daily users, and then one that's like a really public facing, more marketing centric, where students could come. Again, the state process for having the money to afford it, purchasing it, all of that kind of stuff, is troublesome, but also not the biggest priority right now. So those have definitely taken a back burner. And honestly, things that we have no influence over. You know, we can't change some of that.
Well, I was just gonna ask, we wouldn't be the ones putting that website together. That would be, I mean, that would be a Kansas Board of Regents.
Right. Our communication
Activity.
staff. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another place where I was like, well, are we duplicating work? We're trying to get someone to move to do something that they should be doing anyway, but we don't really, I mean, we can tell them to go do it. but-
Right. Right.
Sure.
Yeah, we're
that long.
kind of thrashing around to find a purpose, it seems like, and you're right, if it's that hard. I don't know, I'm pretty close to saying we ought to just let this thing go, but I'm just trying to figure out if there's some system level things like if not us, then who? So up here where it talks
Yeah.
about making sure that we're aligning the offerings with the needs of business and industry, I mean, that's happening.
Mhm.
But in what sense is the TEA owning a part of making sure that it continues to happen? And maybe that would be something that a committee, maybe not this one, would have some role in. I don't know. And the enhancing system participation thing, naturally enough, the schools and the others are
Yeah,
marketing their programs, but in what sense are we owning some aspect of that? These are question marks. I don't know. I'm not defending the committee. We could disbanding it or redoing it is probably in order.
It's
well,
almost like it should say we're providing the information and data required for enhanced communications for whomever is having that communication, right? We're the backbone providing that information and data. That's our job. And I would think our goal, not to actually do it. So maybe it's a rewording of it a bit.
providing.
But again, to your point, do we need a committee to do that, or is that just something that staff is doing anyway when asked for the information?
Pretty
And
much.
so I'm also going to put somebody else on the spot, Cindy Ferrier, who is the director of our data and research team, who does all of our data and all of the
Yeah.
reports, is on the call. So Cindy, sorry to put you on, but do you have any thoughts?
On the relationship of marketing and advocacy,
Yeah, or
or the
the
Go ahead.
reports, like the key stats. Nobody, we don't really take that to anybody for approval, right? That is, we're generating a public facing report to just reflect the data that we collect.
right. But then we have the strategic plan dashboard that's really focused on those initiatives that we want to do as a system. So that would be a little different than key stats. As far as the this advocacy and marketing committee, I mean, when I read that item, I think more along the lines, it's a lot of words in one sentence, but I think more along the lines of, what are things we could do together with KSDE to help streamline some processes for students, maybe. And some of that, it does involve data. Some of it's just, that maybe K-Board doesn't always know what high school students do or, engage in as far as like the independent plans of study, and some of it may be just communication with each other. But that's kind of what I think is probably what this was intended to be at some point.
Yeah.
I wasn't included on that goal either, but that's what I would guess.
Yep. Sorry to put you on the spot, but we started talking about reports and all that.
No
So I was
problem.
like, you
Yeah.
were on here.
No problem. Thank you.
Well, none of that would seem to require a committee, would it?
No.
If something came up, if the system broke, the chair or the board could create a little task force to run after it and see
Exactly,
what the deal is.
exactly.
Yeah.
There would, something that you would need to meet every month. On the finance, there's always financial issues, programs, there'll always be program issues. This particular, anything else that came up, whomever is chair could designate a task force to hold, sporadic meetings or, to fix whatever got off the rails and try to get everything lined up again, or if our members that are connected with the high schools and the counselors need some assistance, or if they
Mhm.
ask for assistance, we could work directly with them on that, but not have it as a separate committee. That would be an option.
Well, I don't hear anybody on here railing against the idea of disbanding this committee, so let's play that out. What would the process, how was the committee created? By the action of the full TEA, or how do you, so would we maybe end this meeting by recommending to the TEA that they disband this and dot, 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 I don't know.
Well, that
Yeah.
that could be a recommendation that you want the full TEA to consider and discuss.
Okay.
And what would happen. Just thinking about the members, what would happen is the other two committees would get larger. So this group would get split between the program and curriculum and business, or the budget and finance committee. So that would also make it easier sometimes to get a quorum to hold those meetings. We know people are very busy. But if that is something this committee would want to do, is recommend that up to the full TEA to have that discussion. Maybe other members have some really brilliant ideas of what we can do, or maybe they'll be in agreement.
And some of us are on 2 committees, so then we could be on 1 committee.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a win. Is Tiffany the only other TEA member who's not on the call at the moment, or are we missing
Natalie.
some?
And
Oh, I'm
Natalie
sorry,
Clark.
Natalie.
And Natalie.
Okay.
And we also have Angela White.
Well, Laura is
Amber.
sitting in for Angela.
She's sitting in for Amber.
Oh, that's right. Well, Angela also sits in for Amber.
Oh,
I
okay.
think
Well,
all three of them are from labor.
okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so Curtis and Cindy and Laura represent a quorum here, or, I mean, do we have what it takes to make this recommendation and move it
Yes.
up? Okay,
Yeah, 3 makes a quorum.
okay, so what do you think, Cindy? Do you wanna, or Laura, do you wanna move to,
Do we need a motion
I don't know.
or just a recommendation? We add it to the discussion agenda.
And
Or-
again, on the 30th, when we meet on the 30th, I'll have these goals, and this particular goal may or may not get removed, but the committee can recommend that this committee as a committee disband, and should any issues regarding advocacy or need for assistance in, if another, how do I want to say that? If another issue should arise that needs the board to look at, the chair can always appoint a temporary task force.
And I do think we ought to consider removing, I mean, I'm not sure we need 10 goals. That seems like a lot.
If you want,
to me.
if you want to recommend removing goal 9, which was the only one that was assigned to this committee.
Okay, it was 9. I was thinking it was 10. I was off. Yes. Because again, I just don't think it's very vague too.
Yes.
It's not really measurable per se, and it feels a little wishy-washy. So yeah, I would recommend we remove 9 and we have a discussion about disbanding the committee and reassigning members.
Okay.
Or whatever that appropriate process is to do that.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to reserve a little time to think, Cindy, about the potential kind of visceral impact of taking all that out of our goal set, because there's a potential interpretation that, oh, so you don't think it's important to make sure that parents are being communicated. So if I get into that in the meeting, don't feel like I'm hiding any balls or anything, but as I think about it, we might want to carve that in some other way, or some of those ideas, rather than having them just go away.
Well, and I think we need to be clear about why we want to remove it,
Mhm.
right? I think
Yeah.
the why, and maybe this isn't right, but to me, the why is that this is already what we do.
It's
Right.
almost like number 9 fits in some sense up in the paragraph above it, rather than as a enumerated goal.
With fewer
It-
words, but the intent
Yeah.
of the goal is in the mission.
Yeah.
Right. So why do we need, because unless we're going to have something specific, and again, that could be a task force item or a special request, but unless there's a specific measurable goal, which this isn't, then maybe it's the mission, and maybe it's already in there, or maybe we want to enhance it, whatever. But I think that would help alleviate some of the bringing it up. I think we need to do it in that
Yeah.
way rather than just say, well,
Right.
just can it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, perhaps we don't need a motion, but given the kind of cataclysmic nature of this, as far as the committee is concerned, it does seem that the minutes should reflect that Curtis, Cindy, and Laura, unless I'm wrong, there's a consensus here that we want to move this on to a discussion by the full board. You agree, Laura?
I would agree.
Okay, so we probably just need to check that off in the minutes, but okay,
Okay.
Good,
there you go.
good plan.
Anything else before our committee in twilight here? This is kind of poignant. Should have brought some champagne or something. I don't know.
Oh.
Well,
Okay.
this is my first time participating on this committee. But I'm part of Labor Market Information Services here over at the Department of Labor. And we are also kind of trying to, with our own marketing, kind of break into that career counseling market and that kind of thing. And one of the things that we just did recently was we had them send out just kind of a notification through their listserv. So I don't know if that's something, it goes to all career counselors and all staff. I can send the contact information if that's something that would be helpful, if that's not something you're already doing. But that worked out really well for us. I just thought I'd share that.
And I'm thinking that that bit of information and what Department of Labor, what your group is doing, and the changes to your website are beautiful and wonderful. And what KSDE is doing within their own communication structure needs to be brought and shared with the TEA, but we don't affect any of that.
Yeah.
We want to be a forum for the groups that are actually doing this communication and advocacy, so that the word help you get the word out by sharing it at our meetings. And our member representatives should certainly be sure and to do that during their they have an opportunity to do that during each one of the TEA meetings, to share what's new and what's wonderful. And if something's really big and exciting, maybe even be an item on the agenda to get that information out, because it not only gets it to the TEA members, but also to all of the colleges that are participating or sitting in and listening to the meetings. So we'll be a venue to help those doing the work get the word out.
Thanks. Good talk. I think item number 4 on our agenda may be moot, so unless there's anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, I think. Are you okay with that, Rita? Are we done?
Nope, I think we're,
Good talk. Okay. I don't know what
Alright,
you
well.
need to put into the minutes, but
well, I just.
let's say,
Yeah, go ahead. I would, go ahead.
how formal do you need it to be in the minutes that somebody moved to adjourn and seconded? We could just say we're done if you want. Is that okay?
You
All
can
right.
simply adjourn the meeting.
We are adjourned, my friends. We'll see you at the big meeting next time. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.